Our policy should aim to strengthen families, not undermine them. And changing the definition of marriage would undermine the family structure.
That was President Bush earlier today speaking out in favor of a constitutional amendment to ban same-sex marriage. Some are calling it a transparent attempt to play conservative voters. Will it work is the question. Here to debate that, Air America radio host Rachel Maddow joining us tonight from New York. Rachel, welcome.
Hi, Tucker. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I am convinced this is a subject on which decent people can disagree. In fact, I know, because I know decent people who are on both sides of this question. That is what gets me exercised, is the claims to the contrary. Senator Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts said this just the other day, quote, "A vote for this amendment is a vote for bigotry, pure and simple." In other words, you're not allowed to disagree. If you do disagree, you're a bigot. I just think that's a conversation ender, not a stopper, and it's an outrageous thing to say.
Well, he's calling the question as to why the Senate is spending 3 days debating this right now. He's calling the question as to what the purpose is of spending this much political time, political energy, and resources of the U.S. Congress that could be spent on other things doing this. Nobody believes this will pass. It has nowhere near the votes to pass in the Senate, nowhere near the votes to pass in the House, and it probably wouldn't pass the state legislatures either. This isn't going to happen in terms of law, so why are we doing it now?
Well,
we're doing it now for us as a sop to the conservative right.
Of course, that's exactly right. We're doing it for the same reason Gavin Newsom, mayor of San Francisco, started performing gay weddings in San Francisco, which was a sop to his constituency, the gay constituency.
Or it was, you know, to recognize the civil rights of his constituents, either way.
And maybe in this case, it's an attempt to protect marriage. My only point is, all this talk about politics and my politics, I can't believe it. Politics is, in a democratic system, a process of appeasing your base, of the people who voted for you, of doing things that the people who elected you want you to do. There's nothing necessarily sinister about that. Why are we pretending there is?
No, but what we've done is we elect people, we elect a president, we elect a Congress that are supposed to pass laws and enforce them. What they're doing right now on gay marriage is not about that. What they're doing right now on gay marriage, and Arlen Specter has talked about this from the Judiciary Committee in very open terms. He says, I'm against this, but I'm going to let it pass through and I'm going to let it go to the floor of the Senate so they can have the debate that they need in order to get votes on this issue in November. This is an issue that is purely, has only political ends, has nothing to do with anything real going on in the country.
Wait a second, though. You can't separate politics from what is real going on in the country, as you put it. I mean, you're absolutely right. The Bush administration, in one way, the Bush administration is doing this because they want to reassure conservatives they're conservative. Right. They're not, but they're pretending they are for the purposes of the midterm election. Okay.
They at least know how to play them for electoral purposes.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, A. B, the process of politics is the process of using rhetoric to convince people of something. A debate on gay marriage is what we need. You don't want this settled in the courts. You want this settled at the ballot box. You want the people to decide what they want. You want democracy to work. Why are we afraid of democracy?
Wait, no, how are you any more in favor of democracy by imposing a federal constitutional amendment that restricts what states are allowed to do on this? How are you more in favor of democracy by being in favor of that than against it? The idea that there's some sort of procedural conservative fairness going on here is ridiculous.
I'm not saying this procedural conservative fairness. I'm merely saying the attempt by gay rights groups to get gay marriage enshrined in law through the courts is a less... Hold on. I'm not attacking them for doing that. I'm merely saying that's a less democratic way of getting your will than voting is.
Tucker, the last time I checked, the basis of our constitutional democracy is that we had 3 branches, and one of them was the courts. The courts weren't some communist influence coming in here from Cuba to change our laws. The courts are part of the way the American government makes our systems of law. And when in Massachusetts, in my home state,
I'm fully aware of that. I'm merely saying, why not let voters have a say in this?
In Massachusetts, what's happened? In Massachusetts, there was a state Supreme Court ruling that said that gay marriage ought to be legal, right? Then, since then, the Massachusetts state legislature has not overruled it. What the federal marriage amendment would do would force the Massachusetts system of government to change something that the state legislature has not expressed an interest in doing. Why is that a conservative value? Why is that more democratic? Why is that more fair?
I am merely saying it is a good thing for members of the Senate to get out there and tell us what they really think. Democrats, for instance, can explain why they're opposed to gay marriage, as almost every one of them is in the United States Senate. They can explain to people like you, gay Democratic voters, why they're against it. Republicans can explain why they're against it. We can all talk about it in an open way without euphemism, and I think that's good for the country.
I think the euphemism here is this whole idea that gay marriage is somehow more dangerous to marriage than divorce is, right? You know, and I don't want to be lectured by divorced George Allen about how horrible I am for marriage when he's the one who broke up his own marriage.
I think it's cruel of you to point out George Allen, but I agree with your point that divorce is more dangerous to American life than gay marriage. I
So
agree with that.
let's
It
ban
hurts children
divorce
more.
and have a principled discussion instead of this political pandering.
I'm sort of open to that possibility. I think divorce
All
is
right.
awful, by the way.
We'll ban divorce, you and I.
Thank you, Rachel Maddow. We can take that up on tomorrow's show. See you, Rachel.
Tucker. Bye.
Still to come.